Picture this. You're scrolling through used luxury car listings, dreaming of that Mercedes-Benz badge on your driveway. But then reality hits you. Those repair bills look scarier than the monthly payments on a brand new car. Now, what if I told you there are classic Mercedes models that don't just survive the test of time, they actually thrive with age? Cars so over-engineered that 30 years later, they still look and drive like legends. Today, we're breaking down 3 Mercedes-Benz models that were built to last forever. And trust me, number 3 has a story so shocking, it'll change how you look at luxury cars forever. Mercedes-Benz E-Class W124, 1984 to 1996. Imagine this for a second. Modern cars are packed with electronics, flashy gadgets, and promises of luxury. But give them a few years and you're left with endless warning lights, expensive repairs, and a car that feels disposable. Now picture a Mercedes from the 80s and 90s that's still out there today, not struggling to survive, but thriving like it was just built yesterday. That's the W124. Produced between 1984 and 1996, the W124 wasn't just another E-Class. It became the definition of Mercedes' golden era. Cars engineered to last, not to meet sales targets. Even after 30 years, these sedans, coupes, and wagons still carry a presence on the road that feels timeless. Straight lines, balanced proportions, and bodywork so solid it feels carved from stone. This car wasn't about flash, it was about substance. The real magic of the W124 lies under the hood. Mercedes offered a wide range of engines, but 2 stand out: the bulletproof diesel and the silky petrol straight 6. The 300D diesel is legendary. It's not fast, but it's practically unkillable. Taxi fleets in Europe ran them to 500,000 kilometers without breaking a sweat. Many still push past 800,000 kilometers, and some even cross the 1 million mark. That kind of endurance is almost unheard of today. On the petrol side, the 3.0-liter inline-6 became the sweet spot. With around 180 horsepower and 255 newton-meters of torque, it wasn't a race car, but it delivered smooth, effortless performance. Combined with the rock-solid 4-speed automatic or the durable manual transmissions, these engines gave owners confidence that every journey could be completed without drama. And then there were the special versions. Enthusiasts still dream of the 500E, a 5.0-liter V8 beast built in collaboration with Porsche. With 322 horsepower, it turned the respectable W124 into a stealth performance machine. But even without the exotic models, the regular W124s were impressive enough to earn their reputation. What really made the W124 shine was the way it felt. Close the door, and you hear that famous Mercedes thunk drive it, and the suspension smooths out bumps with grace while keeping the car stable at Autobahn speeds. The steering feels precise, the brakes inspire confidence, and everything about the car whispers durability. No squeaks, no rattles, just pure engineering. Step inside and you'll notice the same story. The interiors were built to be used for decades. Switches still click firmly, seats hold their shape, and the materials don't fall apart. Mercedes didn't chase trends. They built cabins that aged like fine wine. Even today, many W124 interiors look fresher than modern cars that are only 10 years old. The numbers tell only part of the story. Horsepower range from about 130 to 220 in most petrol versions, with torque between 180 and 310 newton-meters depending on the engine. Diesel variants had less power but unmatched stamina, but more important than the figures is the fact that these cars were designed to go 500,000 kilometers, and often doubled that with care. That's why the W124 became a global legend. It wasn't the flashiest or the fastest, but it represented something Mercedes hasn't quite repeated since: uncompromising quality. Ask any old-school Mercedes fan about the most reliable car the brand ever built, and most will point straight to the W124. Even now, when you see one glide past on the road, it doesn't feel like a relic. It feels like proof that great engineering never goes out of style. And that's exactly why the W124 is remembered as one of the most durable, most iconic Mercedes-Benz models of all time. Mercedes-Benz 280S E/300 SE, W116, 1972 to 1980. Let's go back to the 1970s, a time when luxury cars were all about showing off. Cadillac in America was building massive land yachts, BMW was chasing sporty prestige, and Mercedes-Benz decided it was time to redefine what a luxury sedan could be. Out came the W116, the very first Mercedes to officially wear the S-Class badge. And among its lineup, the 280 SE and 300 SC stood out as the perfect balance of power, comfort, and legendary Mercedes reliability. The W116 didn't just replace the older sedans, it set a whole new standard. This car introduced features that the entire auto industry would later copy. It was the first production car in the world to offer ABS brakes, something we take for granted today. Its crash safety engineering was decades ahead of its time, and it looked the part too. Big, confident, with those iconic stacked headlights and a stance that made you think of powerful men in suits stepping out at embassies and boardrooms. The W116 had presence, and the 280 SE and 300 SE gave it the heart it deserved. The 280 SE came with a 2.8-liter inline-six, producing around 185 horsepower and about 240 newton-meters of torque. Smooth, responsive, and reliable, it was a workhorse that could handle both city streets and endless Autobahn cruising. The 300 SE, on the other hand, featured a larger 3.0-liter inline-six with about 185 to 188 horsepower and 255 newton-meters of torque. It wasn't about blistering speed, but about effortless, comfortable performance. These engines weren't just numbers on a page. They were built to cover hundreds of thousands of kilometers without giving up. That's what makes the W116 so special, the longevity. Properly maintained, these cars can easily surpass 500,000 kilometers, and many examples from the 70s are still running today. Back then, Mercedes built cars for people who wanted a machine that could last a lifetime. Owners didn't buy them to trade in after 5 years. They bought them as long-term companions, and the engineering reflected that. Driving a 280 SE or 300 SE today is an experience that modern luxury cars simply can't match. The ride feels solid and planted, thanks to Mercedes' advanced suspension set up for the time. The steering is steady, the cabin is quiet, and the whole car feels like a fortress gliding down the road. That's why the W116 earned the nickname the Bank Vault on Wheels. Once you shut the heavy doors and settle into the thickly padded seats, you feel like nothing outside can touch you. And the build quality? Almost unmatched. The W116's interior was designed with German precision. Simple, elegant, and built from materials that could handle decades of use. Wood trim, durable fabrics or leather, chrome details, all put together with a level of care that modern cost-cutting would never allow. Sit inside one today, and it still feels special, like stepping back into a time when Mercedes was obsessed with perfection. The 280 SE and 300 SE weren't the flashiest versions of the W116. There was the mighty 450 SEL 6.9 with its monster V8, a car that terrified rivals. But the six-cylinder SE models represented the sweet spot, affordable enough for more buyers, yet still offering the full S-Class experience. They gave you reliability, comfort, and the prestige of owning the best sedan in the world without the extreme running costs of the bigger engines. And here's the thing, these cars weren't just about the driver. They were about status. Pull up anywhere in a W116 and people knew you had arrived. Heads of state, diplomats, and business leaders all chose the W116 because it projected power without needing to shout. That's a kind of prestige that never fades. Today, the 280 SE and 300 SE remain beloved classics. Collectors and enthusiasts search for well-kept examples because they know what they're getting. A car from the golden age of Mercedes-Benz, when engineers had free rein to design the best sedan on earth. Whether petrol or diesel, manual or automatic, short wheelbase or long, the W116's DNA is pure Mercedes greatness. So why are these cars legendary? Because they were built to last, designed to protect, and styled to impress. They set the benchmark for what every future S-Class would have to live up to. Even now, more than 40 years later, a W116 in good condition doesn't just look good. It feels alive, ready for another long journey. The 280 SE and 300 SE weren't about flashy gadgets or cheap thrills. They were about getting the fundamentals right: a strong inline-six engine, timeless design, safety ahead of its time, and build quality that makes modern luxury cars look fragile. And that's exactly why they've earned their place as some of the most reliable, most respected Mercedes-Benz models ever built. Mercedes-Benz 500 SEL, W140, 1991 to 1998. In the early 90s, the luxury car world changed forever. BMW had the 7 Series, Jaguar was still clinging to old-school charm, and Lexus had just shocked the market with the LS 400. But Mercedes-Benz wasn't about to let anyone steal the crown. So they unleashed a machine that would become one of the most over-engineered sedans ever built, the W140 S-Class. And right in the middle of this legendary lineup sat the 500 SEL, a car so advanced, so ahead of its time, that people still talk about it today as the last true S-Class. The W140 wasn't just a car, it was a statement. Mercedes spent billions developing it, ignoring budgets and focusing only on perfection. The 500 SEL was powered by a 5.0-liter naturally aspirated V8 engine, producing around 322 horsepower and 470 newton-meters of torque. That meant smooth, effortless acceleration for a car that weighed nearly 2 tons. It wasn't built for drag races. It was built for silent, unstoppable authority on the Autobahn, cruising comfortably at speeds that would terrify smaller sedans. And here's the kicker. Despite its size and weight, the 500 SEL had one of the smoothest rides of its time. The suspension was tuned for comfort, but never felt sloppy. The steering was precise, the cabin whisper quiet, and when that V8 came to life, it was like a mechanical symphony, perfectly balanced between power and refinement. The W140 introduced technology that many cars wouldn't see for another decade: double-pane soundproof windows to block outside noise, soft closed doors so you never had to slam them, power-assisted trunk closing, memory seats with full electronic adjustment, even tiny antennas that popped out of the rear fenders to help you park this massive beast. The 500 SEL was essentially a luxury spaceship disguised as a sedan. Step inside, and you immediately understand why it became a legend. The cabin feels like it was carved out of granite. Thick leather seats, real wood trim, and controls that clicked with precision. Everything in the W140 was built with a level of craftsmanship that few brands could match. It didn't just look expensive, it felt indestructible. That's why owners often describe it as a tank in a tuxedo. But let's talk about reliability. Many people assume luxury cars from the 90s are nightmares to maintain, but the 500 SEL proved otherwise. If you kept up with basic servicing, this V8 could run for 500,000 kilometers without major issues. In fact, some examples have crossed the 1 million kilometer mark and are still going strong. That's the beauty of Mercedes engineering from this era. Durability was baked into the DNA. Of course, it wasn't a cheap car when new. The 500 SEL cost more than most houses in the 90s. But that exclusivity is exactly what makes it so iconic today. Heads of state, business tycoons, and celebrities all chose the W140. It became a symbol of power, wealth, and authority. Dictators rode in them, pop stars flaunted them, and everyday people dreamed of one day owning one. Few cars in history have commanded that kind of universal respect. The legend of the 500 SEL also comes from its presence on the road. This wasn't a sleek, delicate luxury sedan. It was big, bold, and intimidating. When a W140 pulled up behind you in traffic, you moved aside. Not because it was speeding, but because it radiated authority. That sense of power is something modern cars rarely capture. And let's not forget, the W14500 SEL wasn't just about being big. It was smart, safe, and built with incredible foresight. Mercedes designed its body with crash safety zones years ahead of industry standards. The brakes were strong, the handling stable, and the engineering made sure this car could carry its passengers in comfort and security no matter the journey. Even today, more than 25 years later, the W14500 SEL remains one of the most respected sedans in history. Collectors value it. Enthusiasts adore it and owners treasure it. It represents the peak of Mercedes-Benz's philosophy, building the best car in the world, no matter the cost. And that's why the 500 SEL is more than just a car. It's a symbol of an era when Mercedes engineers had the freedom to chase perfection, an era when luxury meant durability, presence, and timeless design. When you see a W140 on the road today, it still turns heads, not because it's flashy, but because it carries an aura of greatness that never fades. So if you're looking for a luxury sedan that combines history, engineering, and road presence, the 500 SEL is the one to beat. It's a car that reminds us of a time when Mercedes built legends, not just vehicles. And that's why the W140 has earned its place as one of the greatest cars ever built. And with that, we wrap up our journey through three Mercedes icons that redefined luxury. From the unstoppable W124 to the pioneering W116, and finally the over-engineered masterpiece that is the W140 500 SEL. These aren't just cars, they're rolling proof of what happens when Mercedes decides to build the best, no matter the cost. If you enjoyed this deep dive into automotive legends, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more, and drop a comment below telling us which classic Mercedes you'd love to own. Because at the end of the day, cars like these aren't just machines, they're dreams on wheels.